All right, let's just jump right in. We all like to think we're pretty good at figuring people out, right? I mean, we are people, so it feels like we should have some kind of expert level access to what makes us all tick. But here's the kicker. What if I told you that our built-in equipment for understanding the mind is, well, it's fundamentally flawed?
Think about this for a second. Does that coffee you're drinking actually make you smarter? Or does it just, help you do dumb stuff but faster? And hey, what about that week-old pizza that's been hanging out in the back of your fridge? Could it really make you see things? These questions seem like you could just answer them with a gut feeling. But the real answers, well, they might just surprise you. And they show us something really important about how our own minds work.
Here's the problem. Our intuition, that gut feeling we rely on so much, isn't always right. Actually, sometimes it's spectacularly wrong. And we really underestimate how dangerous it is to get this stuff wrong. You have to understand our brains are tricksters. They're wired to create stories and find patterns, even when there's absolutely nothing there.
So if we're going to study the mind for real, we first have to face the fact that our own thinking is buggy. Let's get into it. We're going to look at the most common cognitive traps our brains set for us pretty much every single day. First on the list is something called hindsight bias. You'll know this one as the "I knew it all along" phenomenon. It's that feeling you get after something happens, where you completely convince yourself that you saw it coming from a mile away, even when you really didn't. It's a neat little trick our brain plays to make us feel way smarter than we actually are.
Just think about it. Your friend, let's call him Acutha, he eats that sketchy, week-old pizza. If he gets sick, what do you say? Ugh, I knew it. But if he's totally fine, you just forget you ever said anything. It's like our brains have a special spotlight for the times we were right, and they just conveniently ignore all our misses. It gives us this totally inflated sense of our own predictive powers, and our brains are they're desperate to find patterns, even in totally random noise. You flip a coin and get 5 tails in a row. It feels like something special, right? Like a streak. But statistically, that outcome has the exact same chance of happening as some jumbled up mix of heads and tails. We can't help but see meaning where there's nothing but chance, and that can lead us way off track.
And then there's just plain old overconfidence. Oh yeah, that feeling when you are just so certain you're right about something or about someone, but in reality you are deeply, profoundly wrong. Come on, we've all been there. And look, these biases, they're exactly why we need a system. We literally need a way to save the study of our minds from the built-in glitches of our minds. So, how do we actually get past all this flawed intuition? Well, we use the psychologist toolkit. And the most important tool in that kit is the scientific method. This is what lets us go from just having a hunch to creating a real testable hypothesis. It's how we find actual answers.
The first few tools in the kit are all about one thing: describing behavior. So you can do a deep dive on one single person. That's a case study. Or you can just hang back and watch people in their natural habitat, naturalistic observation. Or you can just ask them what they think with surveys and interviews. Now, these are all great for collecting info, but they all have the same big weakness. They can describe what's happening, but they can't tell you why. Surveys, in particular, are really tricky. The specific words you use, they can totally change the answers you get. For example, asking people if they want to ban something sounds way harsher than asking if they want to limit it. And vague terms are a nightmare. If you ask, "Do you believe in space aliens?" people are probably picturing little green dudes. But if you ask, "Do you believe intelligent life exists elsewhere in the universe?" well, that's a totally different question, isn't it? And of course, who you ask is huge. If you go to a pacifist club to ask about arms control, you're not exactly going to get a picture of what the general public thinks. Okay, so once you've described some behavior, you might start to notice some connections. You see that, hey, when this one thing happens, that other thing seems to happen too. But this brings us to, and I'm serious here, maybe the single most important critical warning in all of psychology. We have to get this tattooed on our brains. Correlation does not equal causation. Let me say that again. Correlation is not causation. Just because two things seem to happen together, it does not mean that one caused the other. This is hands down the easiest and most dangerous mental trap you can fall into. All right, let's go back to the pizza. Let's say your friend Bob. He's the one who eats that, questionable, fuzzy pizza.
Not long after, he starts telling you he's seeing green armadillos, and they have laser eyes. What you've just seen is a correlation. The fungus pizza seems to show up right before the hallucinations. But, and this is the million-dollar question, did the pizza actually cause the hallucinations? See, a correlation only points out that there's a relationship. It gives you a hint, a possible cause, but it's not proof, not even close.
I mean, what if something else was going on? Maybe Bob was already on the edge of a psychotic episode. Or maybe he hadn't slept in, 3 days. Or what if he was just about to get a massive vision-altering migraine? Any one of these things, these confounding variables, could be the real culprit. The correlation was just a clue. It wasn't the final answer.
So to get beyond just seeing clues, we have to stop just observing and start experimenting. Experiments are the gold standard. They're the one tool that lets us isolate all the different factors so we can finally figure out cause and effect. Okay, let's actually design one to see how it works. My friend Bernice swears up and down that coffee makes her think better. Personally, I just think it makes me jittery. We can turn this argument into a real, testable hypothesis. Caffeine will help adults navigate a maze faster. See? Now, the caffeine, that's the one thing we're going to change on purpose. That's our independent variable. And the maze speed, that's what we're going to measure to see what happens. That's our dependent variable. Then we just create a few groups, assign people to them randomly so we don't skew the results, and we're ready to go.
So here's the setup. We have our control group, and we give them decaf coffee. This is our placebo. They think they're getting caffeine, which is super important because it helps us control for the power of belief. Then we have our experimental groups. One gets a low dose of caffeine, maybe 100 milligrams. The other gets a high dose, say 500 milligrams. Now we're set. By only changing one thing, the caffeine dose, we can finally isolate its real effect. So we run the experiment and we graph the results. And let's just imagine this is what we find. The control group, the decaf drinkers, they take about 15 minutes. The low-dose group is a little faster at 12 minutes. But the high-dose group, they blaze through it in only 8 minutes. The data is crystal clear. In this case, more caffeine causes people to finish the maze fast.
And that, right there, that is the power of a controlled experiment. We don't just have a correlation anymore. We have actual evidence that caffeine causes the faster time. Before we ran this test, Bernice's belief was just overconfidence. And after seeing these results, if she said, "See, I knew it all along," well, that would just be hindsight bias talking. The experiment is the only thing that can turn a simple hunch into a proven fact. So there you have it. You've got the basic toolkit now. You know how to spot the sneaky little tricks your brain plays on you, and you know the methods that scientists use to find real, solid answers about why people do what they do. So I guess my final question for you is, now that you know how it's done, what big question would you want to test?